All right, here we go. Thanks for coming to Pitch Day for 100K. It's a great day to pitch. You guys know that Pitch Day is my favorite day of every other week that we have. Today, we're going to hear from Patrick from Revolt Trackers. So we're going to hear from Patrick live and in person. And congratulations to Patrick for making it through our process. We usually screen through about 15 or 20 companies for everybody who gets to pitch live on Pitch Day, whether they're pitching in person or virtually. So it's quite a feat to make it through our process and get here to pitch. So congratulations. So StartUpNV is Nevada's statewide nonprofit startup accelerator and incubator. We operate five nonprofit programs for entrepreneurs or founders, if you prefer, and four for-profit investment funds and syndicates. Our nonprofit is supported by government grants, corporate sponsors in the short term, and over the long term by our accelerator companies who pledge a small amount of their stock to our nonprofit, and our investors who give 5% of their profits back to the nonprofit from the investments that they make. So we run Pitch Day for 100K fortnightly on Wednesdays, where companies pitch for the Q&A and entry into our accelerator programs, which comes with an investment from FundNV, our pre-seed fund, added to by our investor syndicate for an average about $124,000, $125,000 per investment. And that is matched by an amount, the same amount, one to one from Nevada's SSBCI program. We've made 19 direct investments since 2021, ranging from $50,000 on the low end to $1.8 million on the high end. Our latest investment just funded this morning. The Go Ahead match got to Ataract this morning, and we had another investment fund Monday. So we're here with two investments so far this week. That doesn't happen very often where two get done in 1 week, but we're on a bit of a roll. So now for the legal disclaimer. The founders pitching today are pitching for investment from our SEC-approved venture capital fund and accredited investor syndicate. The pitches are directed to those investors, our investors. We invite the whole community to attend for educational purposes, kind of like watching Shark Tank, except nicer, we think. The educational component is critical to our economic development mission for our nonprofit in Nevada. So once again, the pitches today are not a general solicitation for investment from the general public. Now, for information on why I had to read that disclaimer on our entrepreneur and accredited investor programs, please visit our website at startupnv.org. So our nonprofit work would not be possible without financial help from grants and sponsors. The City of Las Vegas, Clark County, the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, or as we lovingly call them, GOED, the EDA, Eide Bailly, and KPMG. Thank you for your support. What we do wouldn't be possible without that support. So let's begin.
Okay, I'm Patrick Woodson, CEO of Revolution Trackers. We deliver lower cost solar energy through the deployment of advanced tracking systems. If you aren't familiar, tracking systems are combinations of hardware and software that move solar panels throughout the day to optimize energy production. They become a fixture of utility scale development because systems that use trackers on average produce 15 to 20% more energy than systems that don't. They've been an important part in helping lower the cost of overall solar energy up until recently. Recently, we've started to see cost increases on the tracker side, which has become a problem. As the world prepares to deploy large amounts of solar energy, there are some built-in cost assumptions. According to the Department of Energy, in their numbers, by 2030, they're expecting to see 40% of the cost wrung out of solar energy outside of any improvements with the modules. The bulk of that needs to come from things like the tracker. But as I mentioned, tracker systems haven't been going down, they've been going up. But unfortunately, there have been some pretty good reasons why that's happened. Most recently, inflation drove up the price of steel, added a transportation cost. There are also some bigger trends. There are basically two kinds of trackers that exist. There's a small format tracker system, which is a system that's built low to the ground that consists of a single module spread out in rows. But there's been evolution in solar panel technology, which has created bigger panels that can now produce energy on both sides. And that's called for an evolution in trackers. So now we're looking to build bigger systems that are higher off the ground. Instead of employing a single module, have multiple modules within those same rows. When we first started to make that move, we saw a lot of structural failure. And what that meant was that the industry responded by creating bigger designs, more steel, more parts, a whole host of remedies to try and make these things stronger. But what they were really doing was adding cost. So that's left us where we are today. So you can build a smaller tracking system that produces less energy, but it's less expensive, or you can build a larger tracking system that has more energy, but is more expensive. Until now, we developed a breakthrough solution that has better structural integrity, it's 30% cheaper to build, and it's optimized for the latest panels. So how do we do it? Well, first we spent about 3 years trying and failing. We did a lot of things that other people had done and got remarkably the same results. And then we had 2 really important breakthroughs. First, we changed the shape of the torque tube, which is the main element that bears the most force in a tracking system. By switching that, we were able to improve the structural integrity. And then we stole some ideas from some other industries. So when you think about how an elevator works, how a ski lift works, or how a suspension bridge works, all of those technologies use tension steel cable to bear a lot of force. So we applied that concept for the first time to these tracking systems, and we got really remarkable results. And once we were able to get past the structural integrity question, it opened up a world of possibilities. So I talked about all those other remedies our competitors had looked to do. Well, we all of a sudden can now start eliminating a lot of those things. To put it in perspective, our biggest competitor builds 9 drives for every row that they build. Our system has 1 drive per row. So imagine if you built a 10-story building, you put in an elevator, and you built a drive to take that elevator up from the first floor to the second floor. Then you built a second one to go from the second floor to the third floor. It doesn't make any sense. There's a far more efficient way to do this. But people have been so terrified of structural failure, they've done all sorts of things to avoid it. We've also developed a system where we can produce more energy than competing trackers. So we believe we've developed the exact right product at the exact right time, because the market for solar trackers is enormous. According to the Solar Energy Industry Association, we're going to build 430 gigawatts of solar energy, utility scale solar energy, in the US in the next decade. That equates to more than $50 billion in tracker sales just in this country. Annualized, that's $5 billion a year in tracker sales. And we believe these large format trackers are going to capture about $3 billion of that market. So we've developed a plan by 2027 to capture a 6% market share, which would equate to about $180 million in annual sales. Now, look, there's competition, but when you look at the landscape, it tells a very interesting story. For the most part, the bulk of the competition is in the small tracker format systems. There are a lot of people who built those, but because it's such an engineering challenge to go from a small format system to a large system, there isn't a ton of competition in the large tracker space. And we think we have a competitive advantage there. The other important thing here about this chart, what we've basically been the only people to do is we've been able to use the same amount of steel in a large format system as our competitors are using to build 4 small format systems. And that's going to give us a decisive competitive advantage. We expect to be at least 25% cheaper than any other product on the market. And we're going to use that competitive advantage. We have a patent protected product. We've secured 4 patents already. We have 6 others that are pending. I mentioned that we can produce more energy. We've developed a methodology where we can track up to 60 degrees, where our competition stops at 45 for the most part. That alone allows us to produce about 2% more energy, or in other words, about $2 million for every 100 megawatts that we put in the ground. So that being able to produce a higher value product cheaper gives us real flexibility. Either we can realize a higher margin, or we can charge a lower cost to gain market share. Our business model is really straightforward. We're going to do direct sales to the 40 largest owners and developers of solar energy in the US. They control about 90% of the market anyway. We're going to price our product well below competition at $130,000 a megawatt. Typical contract sales in this space are between $12 million and $60 million a year. So you can gain market share pretty quickly with just a few deals. We expect margins north of 25%. And once we become more established, there's potential for additional revenue through service contracts when warranties expire. Right now continues to be a good time to be in the space because products manufactured in the US are eligible for tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act. So here's our roadmap. This year, we're going to build our first operating project. Next year, we're going to complete our final wind tunnel testing. We're going to finish our bankability study and build 3 other small projects. Those are precursors to getting to the market by 2025, where we become fully profitable, and we're targeting sales of 25 million a year. That will allow us to get on the same trajectory as a couple other companies that have entered this space. So we know that this timeline is doable. And again, we're trying to get 6% market share by 2027. This is not a small task, but we have one of the best teams around. I'm a former CEO of a $7 billion utility business that began as a startup that went through 2 sales. My partner has built 2 other tracking systems, and he spent 44 years working with PV and in commercial trackers. So we know firsthand what it will take to make this venture a success. So what do we need? Right now, we're looking to raise about $750,000 at a $5 million valuation. And we're going to use those funds to reach significant milestones on our roadmap. The first 40% of the money would go toward building that first operating project. It's really critical that we establish an operating history before we can sell this product at scale. Then we're going to take 30% of that money, use it for that bankability study and that final wind tunnel testing. The rest of it will be runway for the business. We believe this will add about 10 months of additional runway for the operation. So we're Revolution Trackers. We developed a breakthrough solution to lower the cost of solar energy. We've got one of the most experienced teams around. We're working to build a greener future, and we would love to have you guys join us in that effort. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm going to toss it back to Jeff now.
So thanks for participating. Just a few program notes to as we wrap things up here. So investors, if you're curious about startup investing, we have 4 different places for you to go and look at joining one of our groups. Fund NV2 is $2 million accelerator fund. Angel NV is an annual conference fund. The 1864 fund, which you see right behind me here, is our $10 million seed fund. And if you get into any of those things with us, you effectively are joining our syndicate, where you're going to see a good amount of deal flow and some really interesting companies to consider, just like the ones you saw pitching today. So for those of you who are interested in that type of thing, just check out our investor page at startupnv.org, and you'll find general information and a way to get in touch with us so we can explain that in a whole lot more detail. Thanks again, Patrick, for making the trip. So we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks, where we're going to hear from PureSight and Candidate Tools. So we do this every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be back here again on Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. And until then, take care of yourself. And if you can, someone else too.